Hello. So, I realize that it has been quite some time since I have uploaded anything. And this is a purposeful action. My life's really not that interesting when I'm not moving to Europe. But I realized that we're coming up on the 1-year travel-versary of when I moved. So I figured I could do like a 1-year update. So yeah, let's get into it. So a lot of my reflection about this trip had been needing to put some sort of disclaimer or give it reason, rather, not necessarily disclaimer, but definitely give it a reason. And I know I mentioned in my last video that the reason that seemed to sit right or feel good was that it tested my strength in ways that had nothing to do with grief. And I've definitely grown into that a bit more. And it feels good. I know not everything in life happens for a reason, or not everything is, gonna be able to be put into a box, but for me, in this time period in my life, I really kind of just need that, especially for this trip. So yeah, learning a new language and learning the transit system in that new language and just dealing with all the things I dealt with those families tested my strength in ways that I didn't know needed to be tested. And I can then tell that story to my nieces and nephew or my children or, anyone I knew or any new people that I meet. And it's a really interesting story to tell. And it's an interesting part of my story now that started with some really hard times and continued through some really tough times, but just shows that I've got a little grit in me, and I can appreciate that. I openly talk about my mental health and my mental health struggles. Before I got back to the US, I had stopped taking any sort of antidepressant. I was on Lexapro? No, Lexapro gave me a allergic reaction. I blew up like a balloon. I can't remember what I was on. But either way, I stopped taking it maybe about 2 weeks, I believe, before I moved back. And I know in my last video I was talking about possibly needing to get back on it and really just like struggling with that decision. And at this time, I don't necessarily feel like that's something I have to do. I feel like I am in a much better place most days. And I think when I first got here, I was struggling a lot with like really extreme highs matched with just insurmountable lows. I would just have these moments where I was so happy to be around my family and eating the foods that I missed and seeing things I hadn't seen in years. And then just like the weight of everything that happened in Europe, or something would remind me of my mother or my grandmother. And it was just so hard to balance both of those things. And what I'm learning through my grief, and just through life really, is just that sometimes those moments just happen, and the only thing to do is hold space for them and let them be, and that there doesn't always need to be an action to overcome them. So yeah, that's where I am right now, and I would like to stay off them, but I am going to be open to anything and just try to take care of myself and do that by whatever means necessary. Also, in terms of just like my mental health in general, I definitely received like a bit of insight when I was doing this project where I was typing out some of my old diary entries, and I looked back right before I moved to Europe, and the timeline in which I started my antidepressants and moved to Europe was about 2 weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks. And, outside of just like normal concern, I didn't understand why my family was just so scared for me and just didn't know if I was making the right decision. And whereas in retrospect, it was like, well, I was in a really dark place like 2 weeks prior, and I was still not even myself when I moved. So it was just interesting to get that insight as to why there was room for pause. And I'm appreciative to everyone in my life who was able to look at me and recognize that I wasn't myself and held me accountable and asked the right questions and, gave me pushback when I felt like I didn't necessarily need it. I do really kind of want to keep this short and sweet. I know my last couple videos have been in a car. This just seems to be the thing now. It's just where I get my best thinking done, I guess. So yeah, where I am now, basically, I do find myself in a bit of an identity crisis. Mostly because I don't know what to do with my career. For a really, really long time, I was set on any sort of health field job. And at this point in my life, I'm just so good on that. I have no desire to be around anyone sick or anyone that is dying. It's just not anything I'm drawn to anymore. And that's hard because, I was an EMT for 5 years, and even before I got my certification, it was all I wanted to do. And if you know anything about EMS, fire, rescue, anything of that nature, it's just so embedded in who you are just as a person that, even when you're not in uniform or not on the clock, it's still just a huge part of you. You're just a part of this community and this family of first responders. And I do miss that. I do miss that community, but I don't have the same feelings about it anymore. And that definitely leaves me in a place where I'm just like, well, what do I do? And who am I if I'm not this person? I considered going back to nannying for a bit, but back in terms of just like the mental health thing, I learned that having coworkers is really, really important to me, to be able to get some sort of communication throughout the day. And, I love my little people to death, but they don't quite give the same type of company as adults do. So I don't think that that's the best move for me right now. It can just be really isolating, and I'm already kind of in a place where I'm moving back to Connecticut after years away, so I need to make friends again and find social groups, and being in a place where I'm working with other adults is definitely imperative to that. But on the other hand, this is my first job I've ever worked that I didn't love, that I wasn't in love with, and it's interesting. It's just like I find days where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Not to say that didn't happen with EMS, but there was always a really good reason as to why I was getting up and doing my EMS job, whereas now I'm working in a factory, and it's just like, I guess a paycheck in healthcare is gonna have to be it on this Monday. that's my reason. So I do struggle with that a bit. Outside of that, I'm really grateful to be in a better place mentally. Like I said, I still have my days, but I'm learning more and more every day about how to manage my grief in healthy ways, and how to just live my life to the fullest in a way that my mom would be proud, I'm in a really, really great relationship with a fucking saint. Like, this man is incredible, and it's just disgusting how much we love each other, and I'm really happy about that. It's so great to be around my family again. We're just always also connected. You know, you can be over someone's house and 10 people are showing up, and it's probably the same 10 people you saw earlier at the other person's house, and we're always just all together, and I miss that for sure. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any more really life updates. As far as any other sort of YouTube videos, probably not. If I travel, maybe. But like I said, my everyday, day-to-day life is not that interesting. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, everyone, and I've said this a million times. Oh, let me do this really quickly. Let me shout out Paisley for being the rock star of this whole trip, honestly. I have just thought about it, and she was just amazing. She met so many new people and dealt with new dogs and new environments and did amazing on the plane, and she deserves a shout out for real. Yeah, it was great.
On, please.
Oh yes.
Thank you.
Oop, I didn't have my lights on. The cop just yelled at me. Anyway, and I just want to thank you all for your words of encouragement when I was away. Just knowing I had people back home rooting for me was so nice. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.